Three, two, one. Pat DiMarco. First off, man, thank you for joining me. And how's your day going? What you up to?
Oh, it's good. I'm sitting here on the patio. It's golf weather now. It's about 80 degrees out here, so cannot complain because we know it'll all be about 100 here in about a month or so. So we'll take advantage of this weather.
I know, man. Being in Colombia during the summer definitely has its advantages and disadvantages. And one of those disadvantages can be the heat. You grew up in Florida, so I'm
Hmm.
guessing I know golf is close to your family in a lot of ways. Like what was the sports like for you as a child? Like, was it always football? Did you grow up playing different sports? What was it like?
Yeah, so I grew up playing everything. Actually, the first sport I played was soccer. I feel like it's every kid's first sport. My evolution of sports, I guess, was soccer to t-ball, t-ball to basketball. Um, in there, I did, I guess, karate. And my mom said that I got too aggressive with some of the kids, so she had to pull me out. So that's when I think they were like, "Hey, let's try football."
He's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, so started playing football in the third grade. Um, really played all sports growing up. Played all sports up until my sophomore year of high school. And after my sophomore year of high school, I made the varsity football team. Was starting to get recruited a little bit, and that's when I started to. So I dropped basketball. Figured I'm a 6 foot, 215 pound kid playing power forward. There's probably not going to be too much of a future in basketball for me. But I played baseball as a sophomore, played football as a sophomore, gave up basketball, and then after my junior year, it was just football, and I kind of did track in the off season, and I also did weightlifting in the off season just to kind of keep the training and that aspect of it going. So it was good. I mean, I think it's extremely important to develop all those different type of skills through different sports as growing up.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's a big advantage for kids if they can play multiple sports.
yep. I mean, I, I I still can't dance because I mean, some people say, man, he played soccer, he got good footwork. Don't got that. I can work an agility ladder though. That's about all I got.
Nice. There was no golf growing up?
It was mainly my parents would drop us off at like a par 3 course up the road in Orlando. Sometimes over the summer, it was always too slow for me. I didn't really enjoy golfing until college.
Hmm.
Me and a couple of the roommates, Garcia, Brandeis, Reed McCollum, those guys, we actually would go out and play Sunday after games on Saturday. That would be kind of our escape to get away. We had Sundays off, so we would usually go out and try to play golf and hang out and just enjoy the sun to get away from football, get away from students on campus, kind of go escape. So that was when that's when I started enjoying it more, and I didn't really get good until in the NFL. And off season's long, man. You can only work out so much in the morning, and started to get more competitive. You go up in the off season and we're playing money games during OTAs and this and that, and I'm like, man, I'm losing. I need to
Yeah.
get. So I started practicing more, and actually, I think I'm a 3 or 4 handicap right
There you
now. So
go.
I kept it going. I was a 1 my last year in the NFL. After my
Dang.
first year coaching at South Carolina, I got up to a 5. Uh, and obviously we have our 4 young kids now, so getting out once a month is my goal.
Dang, there you go. I was about to say, man, you gotta let Coach Beamer get out there more, but 4 kids is probably the real reason.
Yep, yep, yep.
What position did you play? I read you played offense and defense in high school.
Yeah, so I mainly played like outside linebacker, defensive end in high school. It's more of like kind of an on the ball Sam, and then first and second down, and then third down, I'd kind of widen out and I'd play defensive end. I was pretty athletic, so my thing is I'll just put a big old offensive lineman in space and make a miss. But that didn't translate really to college. Offensively in high school, I played a little bit of tight end, played a little bit of quarterback. I actually returned punts the second half of the season, my senior year.
Nice.
Kind of jack of all trades, do it all. But during the recruiting process, it was always trying to figure out where I fit. I was always just a good football player. Didn't really have some alarming skill set that was like,
Sure.
this has this kid written all over it. It was more of, let's just get this kid on the field. He's a good football player. He'll make it work. So when I signed here, it was, whether is it going to be linebacker? Is it going to be tight end? Is it going to be fullback? That was kind of what I was trying to navigate and what they were thinking through. And I got here, and there was a senior fullback, Bernard Stafford, in 2007. We called him double stack. He was probably 5'9", 255, and just rocked up. So I was like, all right, I'll let this guy hit everybody. I'll go around and catch the passes, at least my freshman year, and I'll learn how to block underneath him. It's exactly what we did. Learned a lot from double stack, and was able to play pretty early here as a freshman, catching the ball on the field and playing on special teams. So that was kind of how it evolved. And I mean, shoot, I remember being 9 or 10 years old playing football with my dad in the front yard, taking my shirt off, rolling my shirt over my head, thinking I was Mike Allstott. Sure enough, 15
legend.
All worked out, and I'm like, man, full circle here.
Yeah, and you think about it, man, like in today's world, you don't see as many fullbacks last as long as you did in your career. Was there who was your recruiter when you went to South Carolina?
So it started as John Hunt. He was the offensive line coach here when I got here. I believe he was here 1 year with me. Coach Beamer was the recruiting coordinator, so he kind of, now that I live in this college football world, I kind of understand what the recruiting coordinator title means now. So he was over the grand scheme of things. So he ran the entire business of recruiting. So under Coach Beamer's wing, Coach John Hunt kind of went out, and he was my area recruiter. So he had Central Florida. But I think the biggest recruiter to me was probably Coach Spurrier.
Nice.
I remember my dad showing me on the message boards when I was in high school that a lot of people just said Coach Spurrier offered Pat DiMarco because it's a thank you to Chris from their time in Florida, my uncle. But I do think that there was something to it, and I think it was, hey, Chris's nephew's a pretty good football player down in Orlando. Let's go check him out. And then I checked the boxes as a football player, and that's kind of how it worked. But Coach Beamer was involved. I remember Coach Spurrier coming into Orlando for our in-home visit right before I committed. And I mean, mom and dad both went to Florida. I grew up a big Gator fan. Coach Spurrier, obviously, with what he did. And so I remember, this is just a funny story about the recruiting process, is my dad was grilling some steaks, and Coach Spurrier was in our dining room telling stories. And I think he was talking either Gator football or Duke football. The guy's memory is just incredible. 3rd and 7, 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Like, understands like everything. But he was telling stories, and my dad's like sitting there like drooling over these stories. Like, this is, a monumental moment in my dad's life, listening to Coach Spurrier tell these stories. And my mom pops in and she goes, Mitch, how are those steaks doing? And I could see just like sheer shock on his face, like, holy cow, steaks. So he ran outside real quick, and the flame is like above his head. The grill's on fire. Like, Coach Spurrier in his own little world doesn't even recognize it. And my dad's freaking out. So he takes the steaks off. He cuts the char off the top of them, and he serves them. And he's all nervous. And Coach Spurrier cut up the steak and put it on top of his salad. And it was like, Mitch, is the best steak you ever made. So my dad's like, thought he ruined the moment.
Very nice. So, I mean, your parents went to Florida too, and I think your Uncle Chris went to Florida too, right?
He did, yes, sir.
So him and Spurrier, like, Spurrier must have loved your Uncle Chris DiMarco.
Well, I mean, it's with Coach Spurrier. If you can talk football and you can talk golf, man, you're his freaking best friend. And that kind of leads into another story. I mean, my freshman year, we were 6-1, going into playing in Vandy. I think we were ranked 5 or 6 in the country at the time. We're the only team we'd lost to was LSU, who won the national championship that year. And so we ended up losing 5 in a row after that. We go 6-6, miss a bowl game, sour taste in all of our mouths. Remember the first practice that spring, I'm sitting there stretching, warming up during warm-ups, and Coach Spurrier walks by, and he called me D-Mark. He's like, hey, D-Mark, what's going on? I'm like, not much, Coach. Excited about spring ball and everything. I was like, how'd the golf game end up after kind of the winter? And he says, shoot, D-Mark, I haven't even considered playing golf since you ran the wrong route against Vandy and lost us that game. And I'm like, oh, snap. All right, not touching that anymore. So pretty funny, but if you golf and football are two things, if you can relate to with Coach Spurrier, man, you could spend hours, days with him.
Do you remember where you were in the 2005 Masters when your uncle lost to Tiger in the playoff?
That was, yeah, I was back in Orlando. We actually didn't come up for that one. We came up the following year in 2006 when he lost to Phil, when he was in the final group with Phil. I remember we came up and stayed the entire week with him in Augusta there. But no, I mean, I remember, I guess it was COVID 2020 when they didn't play Augusta in the spring and they did the recaps of the greatest final rounds. And Chris was in like three of them. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, I was like, wow, I did not. I definitely took it for granted how cool my uncle was back
Yeah,
when
at
I
the
was
time.
in high school. Like, if this was now, like, if we were living this now, like, this would be the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, especially like, I mean, I know he lost, but losing to Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, it's like, I mean, Tiger's probably my favorite athlete of all time. It's pretty
Yep.
incredible.
No, I mean, pretty cool. And Chris has some really cool stories about all that. And I mean, those experiences, like me and my sister would travel with him once or twice a summer. With Uncle Chris and my Aunt Amy, we would go before they had kids, and they'd just take us. So I guess we were their trial run when they were younger, and now they have three kids themselves. So it's it was pretty cool, and I definitely took it for granted when I was growing up in it. But now I'm loving golf as much as I do. I'm like, Chris, can we rewind like 15 years, and
Yeah,
I'm
for
like
real.
this much into it now.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. With South Carolina, like during your playing days there, we've kind of touched on this before we started recording, but like you were there in some of like the best years we've had in a long time. Like, did you see that come up happening? Like, what was kind of the evolution through your eyes for the program?
Yes, I mean, when like my recruiting class in 2007, we were, I want to say we were maybe top five, top six. It was the best class that South Carolina had ever signed before. And I was the measly two-star who probably hurt the rankings in general. But those type of rankings, they don't miss that much. Like, you sign 26 kids, usually half of them, 50% to 60%, are going to contribute in a big way. So you knew you had a bunch of players: Garcia, Dion LaCorn, Chris
Chris
Culliver, Jake.
Culliver, yeah.
I mean, we had some studs in that class. Kyle Nunn. I mean, we had a lot of really good players in that class. So it was like you knew the tide was turning when Coach Spurrier put together a class like that. And then the way that freshman class worked, like I remember the very first workout, we were sitting there going through it, and our first workout was 110s. We had 21 10s, and we had the older guys yelling at the freshman class, like, "Hey guys, slow down, man! You're making us look bad." And we're like, "Well, then hurry up, catch up! Like, we ain't waiting on y'all. Like, you guys haven't made a bowl game in how many years, whatever it is. Like, aren't you tired of 6-6, 7-5? Like, don't tell us to pull back. Why don't you catch up?" So I think that was like kind of the biggest transition in growth for the playing standpoint. But then, as you saw, the recruiting classes just stack and stack. I mean, we had, that year in 2010, my last year when we won the East, you look at, I want to say almost every single player on the defense had a shot at playing in the NFL. I want to say
insane.
Probably 7 of the 11 offensive guys from that starting year had a shot in the NFL. So, like, we were pumping out some really good talent. And then I think it was just learning how to go from being a mediocre team to being a great team. And that's from a leadership standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint. And that's why having a guy like Connor come in, who we kind of grew, like he was a freshman my senior year, and you could tell just his work ethic just from his first week on campus, just from summer workouts. Like Garcia was kind of the top dog, and we'd go through workouts, and we did a lot of competitive drills, and Connor didn't back down, not one bit. Connor would be sitting there waiting and would be like, "Hey, Steven, come on, me versus you, let's go." So you knew that the place was going to be in good hands when Connor came in. I mean, he didn't play that much as a freshman, which he wasn't expected to, but he learned and he grew, and he kind of sat in the back and was very quiet, like he was most of the time. But you could just tell he was taking everything, and he's like, "Okay, when this is my show, this is how I want to do things. Okay, when I'm running the huddle, this is how I want it to be." So kind of seeing the evolution of like even the young talent when I was an older guy there, I'm like, oh wow, like the
Yeah.
machine's just getting rolling too. Led into the 11-win seasons and all that. So it was really cool, the ramp up period. And I think that 2007 class was a pivotal piece to it. But you need more than just 5 or 6 pieces. You have to really stack them, and they did a great job recruiting and developing talent, and then it's on the players and the leadership to really step up. And guys like T.J. Johnson and Connor Shaw and DJ Swearinger, Devontae Holloman, Marcus Lattimore, man, those guys took it to a whole new level.
What was it? Who's more entertaining, DJ Swag or Garcia?
Depends on the mood you're in. If you're in a party mood and you're going to be knocking back a few drinks, I mean, Garcia, I would put Garcia up against everybody. But from an everyday energy, mentality, just like carpe diem, like seize the day, man, DJ's top notch. But two completely like locked in work mode DJ, or like kick back, laid back, let's have fun Garcia mode. So time and a place for both.
Yeah, get a little bit of both. I saw DJ had a pretty good game in the XFL, I think, this past weekend.
I want to say second game, pick 6, had a sack. But I mean, he's a stud. Like that's what's expected.
Was there a reason why, like, I thought he should have, like, he would kind of like move teams in the NFL a lot. Was there a reason? Did you like hear why?
I heard that he didn't kind of, I think there was like some leadership stuff. Like some of the old captains didn't really vibe with him much. I mean, DJ's going to beat to his own drum, and that's
He's
the beauty.
A big personality.
And that's why he's been so good and so successful. So I think was probably some next year influence there, but he still put together a 7 or 8 year career with having around as much. So his play obviously stood out for itself. I mean, the guy was one of the top paid safeties in the NFL with the Washington Redskins for a certain period of time, and then without playing football for 2 or 3 years, have a pick 6 in your second game. Come on now, he's just a ball player. And that's the beauty of him. He beats to his own drum. He's gonna vibe how he vibes, and that's what makes him so successful.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like you said, he's always successful on the field, and that's why I was like, man, like I love him. Obviously, the culture around South Carolina, like when we were not doing so well, 2017, 18, 19 or so, I was like, we got to have another DJ Swag. Like that's what we're missing out there. Yeah. You graduate and you go into the NFL draft. What was your mindset going into the draft?
Please, somebody pick me up.
Did you think you would get drafted?
There was a chance. I mean, talking with my agent, some scouts, I knew it was like late 6th, 7th round, undrafted free agent. And like, I'm kind of glad I didn't get drafted, because I think it kind of put that chip on my shoulder. Because I knew I was talented enough. I knew if the opportunity arose, I was going to be successful. Same thing as a 2-star prospect coming in at South Carolina. I knew I just needed the opportunity. And, kind of my NFL journey, I mean, not getting drafted was kind of pissed me off, but that kind of was that chip on my shoulder. But that was lockout year too. So there was a lot of uncertainty in that. So 2011 draft went by. Draft finishes, bang, lockout starts. So I'm working at a gym here over in Lexington, South Carolina, just basically front desk at a gym, still training for free, trying to at least eat to stay in shape. So I'm like, man, like hopefully this lockout lifts and I get my opportunity. So it probably was 2.5 months until the lockout lifted in July, and I got called by the San Diego Chargers. They gave me basically gave me a high five to come sign out there, and I gladly took it. Flew out there to the West Coast and broke my foot the 3rd day of training camp, just on a standard wind back, cut off the backside defensive end play, just put my foot in the ground and felt a pop. Being a hard-headed fullback like I was, I didn't pull myself out of practice. I didn't even go see the trainer. I just grinded through it and went into the training room right after practice, and I was like, hey, can I get some ice for my foot? My foot's bugging me. And they're like, well, hop up on the table, let us check it out. I'm like, no, give me the ice. Let me go. And they're like, well, we're not giving you the ice unless we can examine your foot. And I'm like, my foot's fine. I just finished practice. Can I just get some ice, please? And they're like, let us examine your foot. So I hop up on the table and they start poking around. And they're like, well, you either sprained your foot really, really bad or you broke a bone in your foot. And I'm like, there's no way. I just finished practice. And they're like, your adrenaline's going. This is your third practice, first day in pads. Like, and you're a fullback. Like, we're not surprised that you finished practice. So, I mean, going through all that, having surgeries 2 days after that, opportunity comes to play in the NFL after the lockout and not getting drafted. It was a big bummer just having my dreams almost shattered just like that, breaking a foot in a standard cut that I do 100 times a practice. It was extremely frustrating, but having that happen, that's part of my story. That was part of the chip on my shoulder. And then kind of leading into that, I had surgery, was released from the Chargers. After that, I went, I guess that was in March when I got released by the Chargers. My foot was completely healed, and then was holding on to hope that some other team was going to give me a shot, and knowing it was going to be a long shot though. So I had some dialogue with Coach Spurrier about potentially being a GA and getting into coaching, getting my MBA, going to grad school here at South Carolina. And he was all on board. He's like, dude, we'd love to have you, but just take your GRE test and get into grad school, and then the rest will be history. So 2 days before I was signed up to take the GRE, the Kansas City Chiefs called my agent, and they're like, hey, we're interested in working out Pat. Is he still interested in playing? I know it's been a while. Is he in shape? What's his weight at? And all this stuff. And my agent's like, no, he's geared up, ready to go. He's excited. He's been training. This is his moment. Agent called me. He's like, hey, man, I just told the Chiefs that you're like 235. What's your weight at? How are you doing? Do you still want to do this football thing? Like, I sold you. Like, can you go and execute? And I'm like, I'm 228, but I'll be 232 for the workout tomorrow morning. So I flew out to Kansas City, worked out for the Chiefs. They signed me. Went into training camp there that year. Within the first 2 or 3 weeks, man, I was running with the ones and twos. It was really cool to see that ramp up period and how fast it was, having not played football in a full year. And, unfortunately, they weren't planning on keeping a fullback that year. So they released me and kept me on the practice squad. Probably biggest blessing in disguise. I was able to learn how to be a pro. I was able to get my feet back underneath me from a football standpoint, learn the game. Our GM was Scott Pioli then, who's still one of my mentors now, who kind of groomed me, taught me how to watch tape, taught me how to scout, taught me how to attack people from a strengths, weaknesses standpoint. So it sucked me and kept on practice squad, but it kept the door open. It was an opportunity. It was a lot better than sitting on the sofa in Columbia, South Carolina with a broken foot. So kind of led into that. Got activated the last 6 games we played, or at least I thought I played well. We went.
What was your first game?
First game was against crazy story. First game was against the Carolina Panthers, and that was 3 days after we had a guy on our team commit suicide in the parking lot. So the game this was, I guess, Friday when Javon Belcher committed suicide in our parking lot. So they moved the game. I mean, I wasn't even they told me on Tuesday, hey, man, you're going to be up this week and playing. I was playing tackle right next to Belcher. He was playing guard on punt. And so I go to drive into the building on Friday morning, and the cops blocked the gate, and they're like, hey, you need to turn around, go home. There's been an incident here. Your coaches will call you and let you know the next step. And like the whole team's like, what in the world is going on? Mm-hmm. So the game actually got moved from Sunday to Monday. We didn't get moved. It got postponed. We weren't even sure if we were going to play, and they ended up moving it just a day back. So that was, I guess that was first game. And then played in 5 games later that year. Played well. I mean, Jamal Charles rushed for, I want to say we ran for like almost 400 yards in a game. Unfortunately, I think that was against the Colts. Unfortunately, we lost that game, which is just ridiculous to run for 400 yards and lose a football game. But they released about 60% of the roster after that season. They needed a facelift. That's when they brought in Andy Reid and that whole staff. So
what was y'all's record that year?
We went 2-14 that year. So it was time. But I was one of the guys that got released. So moved back to Orlando with my parents, was living there for a couple weeks before the Atlanta Falcons called and signed me in Atlanta, and then signed a 2-year contract in Atlanta. Played pretty well in those first 2 years. They offered me another 2-year contract. signed that 2-year contract, played really well the first year of that, was named All-Pro, played in the Pro Bowl. And then the following year, we made it to the Super Bowl. So just really cool. I mean, full cycle. Kid, like undrafted, break my foot, think my dreams are shattered, never going to play football again. Opportunity comes kind of out of nowhere. I'm about to get into coaching, and my agent calls me, "Hey, do you still want to play football?" I'm like, heck yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, go out to Kansas City, get my opportunity back, get released there, go to Atlanta, have some success, get another opportunity in Atlanta, have major success. And that led into kind of going up to Buffalo. And then, after that Super Bowl year, I was finally an unrestricted free agent, which meant it was finally my chance to make money. And before that, I was kind of really handcuffed on what I could do as a restricted free agent. So yeah, I mean, I signed a 4-year deal in Buffalo. Business decision, take care of the family.
Yep.
And it gave us 2 beautiful kids. We had 2 kids while we were in Buffalo. Weston was 1 when we moved to Buffalo. Kirsten got pregnant with Sutton and Coco while we were there in Buffalo. So, it's just a really cool story from an undrafted free agent, 2-star high school prospect to playing in the Super Bowl, being named All-Pro.
I think you're the captain of the team a few times.
Yeah, I was captain in Atlanta. I was a captain in Buffalo. I was the top-rated fullback in the NFL for 4 of my 10 years. So it was it came with a lot of work though.
Sure.
I grinded my tail off. I wasn't the biggest, strongest, fastest guy out there, but I understood angles. I played with an attitude that I try to reference to our guys now in South Carolina. I'm like, they look at me and they're like, "Man, you used to play fullback?" I was like, "Yeah," and it was only about 10 pounds ago. I'm about 220 now. I played at about just over 230. So I was like, you might think I look small, but I wasn't that much bigger when I was playing. I played with the demeanor that you guys need to play with. I played with a bad attitude. And that was part of my success was work ethic, kind of having that demeanor and that attitude to go out there and just not let that opportunity pass. So it was really cool. I mean, goal was to play in 1 NFL game, and then it was to get a credited season, then become vested at 3 seasons, then real benefits kick in at 5. And then I'm like, let's just run this thing until the wheels fall. And then unfortunately, year 10, I hurt my neck in training camp. Kind of had some nerve damage along my right side. I mean, I dealt with stingers a lot while I was playing, and this one just lingered for about 12 weeks. I didn't have full feeling all the way down into my right hand. And we were pregnant with Collins at the time, so our third. And I met with a few doctors and kind of had to make a decision myself that, the nerve stuff wasn't going to get any better. It was only going to continue to get worse. And the doctors kind of relayed that to me. So it was a decision that needed to be made for my family and for us and just for my overall health and well-being. Yeah. It was time to spend 10 years in the NFL. That was a dream come true and a lot of really cool experiences, some incredible friendships I've developed through those years. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Came with a lot of arthritis and a lot of pain I got now, but it was pretty darn cool.
Man, I think you were probably built for it. Like you said, coming out of high school, man, like being underrated, having to prove everybody wrong. And you kind of just kept that chip on your shoulder all the way through. You met your wife at South Carolina?
Yep. We met my junior year, her sophomore year. She was a tri-delt here. And actually we had
Those tri-delts will get you in trouble.
Yeah, I know. Is your wife a tri-delt or?
No, she's not. No? She actually went to Clemson.
Oh no.
She's from Florida though, so I say she's a good Clemson fan. She doesn't, she's not too invested.
That's awesome. Yeah, but we had a mutual friend, Molly Stanton, actually, who tried to introduce us for 2 years, and we kind of dodged each other. And then finally, we ended up at the same bar the same night. And Molly kind of trapped us. She's like, "Hi, I got you 2 here. It's time for you 2 to connect." And the rest is history. I mean, we've talked every day since that day when we met in Village Idiot, there in South Carolina.
Get some good pizza in there.
Yes, good pizza joint, and we had a lot of good times in there. So, yeah, I mean, crazy how that all worked, and meeting Kirsten here at South Carolina, and now living here. Now it's full circle there too. It's just been really cool to be back here.
When did when y'all get married, and how was that balance for like you being playing in the NFL, getting married, and wanting to grow a family? Did she travel with you a lot too?
Yeah, so she's a trooper. When I signed out in San Diego, we were dating. Been dating for about a year and a half then, so it was serious. But she still had one more year. She was going into her senior year, so I went out to San Diego, broke my foot, went through all that. I actually came back to do all my therapy back in Atlanta to be with her, be around kind of a good support staff. So I did all my treatment here that year, and then I got called to go out to Kansas City, and she had just graduated, and she's like, "You're gonna break your foot again. Something's gonna happen. This isn't gonna like I'm not gonna move around right now until you're stable." So she didn't come out with me the first year in Kansas City. So I finished that year, and then the following off season, I had another year on my contract in Kansas City. So we were like, "We're eventually going to get married. Let's start life together. Why don't you move out to Kansas City with me?" So she did. So we packed up our condo in Columbia, South Carolina, and moved out to Kansas City. I want to say before we even were able to unload the U-Haul, I got released in Kansas City, and
Oh,
she's like, "The heck with this. I'm not doing this anymore." She said, "You need to be on a roster, like an active roster, before I start doing this again." So that's when I moved back to Orlando, and then I signed with the Atlanta Falcons. And once I made the roster in Atlanta, she moved to Atlanta with me that season. And then actually right after that season, so that was my third year. So it was 2013. So I believe we got engaged on January 2nd or 3rd of 2014. Um, so no, it was really cool. But balancing that, I mean, she's a trooper. She gave up a career that
hmm.
she had opportunities to go work for St. Jude, but she knew my dreams and she wanted to support me and be with me. So she kind of put her dreams to the side for me to chase mine. And you know, a lot of guys in the NFL, like I needed that. I needed that support staff to be there, my
Sure.
ride or die. And she did it. She did it masterfully too. And you know, in that God's blessed us with four beautiful kids. And it's been so cool to see.
How old is your oldest again?
Weston is 7.
What's he playing? What sports is he into?
He's playing everything. He's right now we're in the middle of baseball. So he's playing a little bit of third base. He wants to he keeps saying he's going to be a pitcher when he gets to kid pitch, but we're doing coach pitch now. So
Are you
he's playing.
helping coach?
I am, yeah. It's fun. It's you know, it kind of gives me my competitive itch, lets me pass the game along. Weston, my son's like, "Dad, how come you're so much harder on me than you're on the other kids?" I'm like, "I just expect more from you, buddy.
That's right.
It's the way it's always going to be." But he does flag football. He does soccer. We have him in some little tennis lessons here in the neighborhood. Plays a little bit of golf, not much, but I'm just introducing golf to him. But he's interested in basketball. Basketball starts in second grade here in Columbia, so we'll try to do basketball next year. Just like we talked about earlier,
Yeah,
like
man.
let him try everything early, see what he really likes and enjoys, and let him pursue what he wants to pursue. I'm not going to pressure him. If he wants to play football, play football. If he wants to play golf, play golf. Whatever sport it is, man. Like I'll be your biggest fan, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. I think like kids sports or just sports in general growing up do a lot for your development anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you don't go on to play, they learning to be coachability,
Mm-hmm.
communication, follow
Yep.
the rules, like get along with others, sportsmanship. I mean, those are life lessons you learn with sports. Have you had or do you ever reflect on like some of the incredible players you got to play with?
Yeah, I was probably one of the least talented players on the field at most
No,
times.
dude. You had the right mindset, man.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I was the most talented though. No, I mean I played with some freakazoids, man. Actually, I was texting with him earlier today. Devontae Freeman, one of my closest buddies that I played with in Atlanta. I played with him for 3 years. Just a dog. Like you'd go to war with that kid every single day, and I was so glad to be able to pave the way for him. I mean, guys like Julio Jones playing with Josh Allen, um, like Matt Milano, who's a stud up there in Buffalo, is just an all-pro, a linebacker this past year. I think he might have been the top-rated linebacker. But like, I was year 9, and he's like coming in, and I'm like, golly, I gotta block this dude. Like, he's 22 years old. I'm almost 32 now. But it was so cool to be able to share the field with those guys. Funny story. I keep talking about my dad. Another story about my dad. But when I made the Pro Bowl in after the 2015 season, I mean, I love sports. I grew up in a sports family. My uncle played on the PGA Tour. My mom's dad played football at Troy. My dad's dad played basketball at St. Joe's. I have a cousin that played in the Baltimore Orioles organization. So, I mean, sports was just a big part of my life growing up. So Kirsten was 37 weeks pregnant when I got into the Pro Bowl, and the doctor's like, you can't go to Hawaii. Like, I know you want to go, but if you go into labor in Hawaii, like, I'm not letting it happen. So my parents went out there with me. And I remember the first night they were there, I was like, hey, let's meet in the lobby at 7. We'll go grab dinner. So I get off the elevator. My mom gets off the elevator across from me. I'm like, hey, where's Dad? And she's like, where do you think he is? And I'm like, is he still getting ready? She's like, no, he's been down here sitting in the lobby for the last hour and a half, just staring at all the players that are walking by, like kind of in awe. Like, my son's at the Pro Bowl with Von Miller and Adrian Peterson and Patrick Peterson and Eli Manning and all these guys. And I'm like, I get it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, if Weston is good enough to play professional sports or whatever it is, I'm going to be the exact same way. Like, I just love sports that much. So
is there a linebacker or D lineman like you're going to play against? You're like, man, today's going to be a tough day.
Yeah, you know who we played against him all the time too, and so much respect for him. But it was Thomas Davis, who played at Georgia, and they played with the Panthers for a long time. Dude, he ran a 4.4 through the hole and didn't pat his feet once. And we ran lead week so much when I was in Atlanta, and it was like, hiya. Like, every other play, I was just smacking faces with Thomas Davis. And I remember I ended up meeting him, or at least becoming closer with him after I left Atlanta and was with the Buffalo Bills. And he came up to me at one of our union meetings, and he's like, Pat, I am so glad you're not with the Atlanta Falcons anymore, because, like, as much as I know you didn't like that contact we had to make, I didn't like it either. Like, it was just like a bomb went off in the hole every time we hit each other. And I was like, yeah, like, but you wouldn't slow down. I wasn't going to slow down either. So, like, there was no way to get around it. But he was just a warrior, especially going through. He had, I think it was 3 ACLs in a row, missed 3 seasons in a row. I want to say he was the comeback player of the year. I think he might have won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So, an incredible player on the field, but a stud off the field too. I mean, shoot, him and Luke Kuechly together, just those two.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a heck of a defense, and you know,
they made it to the Super Bowl too the year before y'all,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, it was like you hated playing them, but you loved playing them because, like, as a competitor, you love playing against the best. So when you play against that guys, and that was Sean McDermott's defense, who was later my head coach in Buffalo. So it was just so cool to kind of go out there and compete against those guys, and then to develop relationships with those guys. I was actually we left for spring break, went out to Aspen here 2 weeks ago, and we were in the Charlotte airport. Luke Kuechly went walking right by me. I was like, Luke, and he looked at me. He's like, DiMarco. Yeah, like, we used to smack each other and talk junk to each other all the time, but now we're giving each other hugs, and he's meeting my kids. So it's just so cool.
How's he doing?
He's good. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing. We just chatted briefly in the airport, just more about life and how everything is. But you know, I think he's, you know, he cut his career short, and it was a personal
tough decision, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just by the body work, like, he'd still be the best linebacker in the NFL if he was playing right now. But he made a decision for him and his family, I would imagine, to cut that short. And, you know, all the power to him. I'm proud of him, and it was incredible to compete against him.
Yeah. Did you you got to see? Were you in Buffalo when Josh Allen got drafted?
Yes. So that was my second year there. Yeah. So that year we had a kind of a 3-way quarterback competition. That summer we traded away Tyrod, so it was AJ McCarron, Nate Peterman, and Josh Allen kind of competing it out. And Nate Peterman actually won the job Josh's rookie year during training camp. And we played Baltimore the very first game of the year, and it was like 55 degrees and raining sideways the entire game. And Nate didn't play very well. Not just Nate, but the team didn't play. We lost like 34-6. And they put Josh in there midway through the third quarter and kind of just were like, all right, you're just going to learn by the burn. Like, let's go, have at it.
Yeah.
And he did some really good stuff. I mean, same stuff now as his arm talent and what he can do with his legs athletically. Kind of went to show you. I mean, he wasn't polished by any means then, but you could just see the talent. You could see the flashes. So no, it was really cool to see his growth. And I mean, now what he's doing out there on the field is just, it's incredible, but it's a surprise. You saw it. You just knew it was going to take time to materialize.
Yeah. What's he like off the field? I mean, I've seen some of those like matches he plays in golf, so you like get a little insight into it, but seems just like a good old dude. He's
a bro. He's just a full-on bro. I mean, I was 30, I think, when we drafted him, and he was 21. So I'm the old man, and he's the young cat. So it was cool, but he kind of just had the charisma. Like, you knew he was going to eventually take it over, and you knew it was eventually going to be his. And he had the leadership skills. People flocked to him. It was just about him fine-tuning those leadership skills and really learning how to be a pro, because he was a 21-year-old kid when he got into the NFL. And I mean, 2-3 years in, like getting groomed by guys like Derek Anderson, Mitch Morse, Lee Smith. Like, those were the type of guys. I like to say myself too a little bit, but we were the type of guys that really groomed him and taught him what it was going to be like to be a pro and be a captain. And he's embodied that stuff and more. And that's why Buffalo's been so successful. And I mean, just the sheer talent alone and the level he's playing at, it's you expect it to happen here for the next 5 or 10 years too. Would
you bet they get a Super Bowl with Josh in the next 5-10 years?
I mean, that, I think if, hindsight's always 20/20, but if Buffalo didn't have as emotional of a season last year that they had, between, they went through a lot last year. They had the shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo in the springtime. There was a mass shooting there. I forget how many people were shot and killed, but that had to kind of wear on them. And then, the DeMar Hamlin stuff, like seeing your teammate potentially die right in front of you on the field, that I don't know how you get over that at some point.
I was watching that game live. That was
I was sitting and laying on my bed, like crying. My wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. This just hits way too close to home, babe." And then they had the snowstorms where they had some people trapped in their cars, a couple deaths there. So just a lot happened in Buffalo last year. Very emotional season for them. Von Miller gets hurt. Just a lot of stuff. And, you like to think if all that stuff doesn't happen, the culmination of it, they might win it all last year in general. But, that didn't happen. So now the opportunity comes, and I'm sure they're going to have a chip on their shoulder going into this year. So, I mean, I think they do under the leadership of Coach McDermott and Brandon Beane. And with talent like Josh Allen, Von Miller, Stephon Diggs, Matt Milano, like they have the pieces in place. It's kind of getting over that hump. It's beating Kansas City and getting over the hump.
Yeah, whatever game they had against, I think did they beat Kansas City in that insane overtime thriller?
Yep. Oh well, no, they lost. That was the AFC Championship game. 12 seconds or whatever it was with the kickoff.
And, crazy.
Nuts.
With 2016, you make it to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, y'all had an incredible year. Like, I think you talked about Deontay Freeman earlier. Like, you boys, the offense was clicking on all cylinders. Obviously, make it to the Super Bowl. Kind of crazy way to lose it against Brady. Like, when you reflect on that season, what do you think about most?
I mean, I still got a pit in my stomach from it. Being as close as we were to winning the Super Bowl, not walking away with it. I mean, that's life-changing, right? But it was such a cool experience. This goes back to, like, me just being a fan of the game of football and a fan of sports, man. Like, yeah, it stinks. And a lot of people are like, man, how did you ever get over that? And I'm like, those experiences are experiences I'm going to have for the rest of my life. Going through Super Bowl media day, spending the whole week out in Houston, like having my son who wasn't quite one, like having pictures of me holding him after we won the NFC Championship game, having my parents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, my wife, like at that event was just incredible. But I mean that team, I think we scored like 36 points a game that year. So like offensively, we were electric.
Did Matt Ryan win the MVP that year?
He did. Yep. I mean, that was Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I mean, there was a lot of pieces to that puzzle, like Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Aldrick Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, a lot of pieces that we added to the puzzle. Austin Hooper, like we had a lot of players on offense that it wasn't like we went in the season knowing this was going to be the finished product. We added pieces here and there. Guys got hurt, brought in more. Guys stepped up. Guys that were practice squad before ended up contributing. But that team was so tight. Like we did so much together off the field. I mean, every single away game, we had 15, 20 guys going to dinner and kind of building the team. That was a big thing with Coach Quinn was like, hey, you guys are only going to be so good if you only spend time while you're in the building when you're on the clock working. Mm-hmm. You guys aren't willing to put time and energy into building the friendships and the relationships outside of this building. We're only going to go as far as our talent will let us go. Like as soon as you guys start playing for the guy to the left of you and the guy to the right of you, that's when we really got something. And I saw through 2015, like we kind of had pieces, like you saw like flashes of it. But 16, man, we just like the whole team bought in. And it was under Coach Quinn's leadership too, which was absolutely incredible. And Kyle Shanahan dialed up some of the best plays offensively I'd ever seen that season. So I mean, it was so cool to see. And then after that year, I went to Buffalo. But I thought that team kind of in place because a lot of the pieces stayed. Besides, Kyle Shanahan took the head coaching job out in San Francisco and some of the coaches. But I mean, offensively, like I want to say I was the only guy to leave. I mean, I was expecting them to like pick up right where they left off. And I think they made it to the second or third round of the playoffs that next year. But I know that there were a lot higher expectations that they had going into that season.
Yeah, dude, it reminded me of your uncle losing to Tiger too. Like it's kind of been like a legendary game that y'all lost to Brady. Like
it was, what was it? We were up 28-3 and sack fumble. I think they scored and then Dante Hightower hit Mac, sack fumble, kind of set him up, made it I think it was still a 2-score game. And, Julio makes that catch on the sideline at like the 27-yard line. We're in field goal range to make it a 2-score game. We were up 8 at the time. And we have a holding penalty, which knocks us out of field goal range, and it's 1st and 20. And then we start feeling the pressure. Do we run the ball, run the clock? We want to try to at least convert it, get back in field goal range and incompletion. So 2nd and 20. Then I think we have another holding penalty. It's 30. And it was just kind of the ripple effect of just bad things happening. But, there's in perfect Tom Brady, they win the toss. Mm-hmm. They get the ball, they drive down, score. And it's just like, dang, like right in front of us. Like we were this close to win it all. But, there's growth in that though. Like I was able to take
sports,
I was able to take those experiences with me to Buffalo and kind of teach those to Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. I mean, there's a lot of lessons I learned from that team and kind of growing it that I was able to pass along. So, the silver lining.
Yeah, for sure. You always gotta find it. I know when I heard you're joining the staff at South Carolina, I was pumped because I was like, all right, I know like when he was in school there, he played with a chip on his shoulder, he played with the right mindset. Like the teams there like had the right mentality going into games, like with DJ and stuff. When you decided to stop your career in the NFL, did you know you wanted to get back or stay in the game?
I was actually complete opposite.
Really?
I told myself, I mean, because every single coach that I'd ever played for in the NFL was like, Pat, you're going to be a heck of a coach when it's all said and done. Like, let us know when you're done playing because we'll be calling you because we'll want you to get into coaching. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. I'm not doing this. I see how often you're away from the family. I see the hours you put in, the craziness. The coach's resume is brutal. it's 2 years, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. If you're somewhere for 4 or 5 years, you're like, man, I just struck gold. And all you did was get your kid through middle school. And then they got to make a new set of friend group. So I kind of told myself that I didn't want to pursue that for that reason. I spent enough time away from my wife and kids while I was playing that I really wanted to dive in. But when Coach Beamer got the job here, we had a prior relationship. He coached me at South Carolina. It was intriguing to come back to my alma mater and kind of live it out and explore coaching. I mean, I knew I'd always love it, but I knew there were always going to be those parts of me that kind of drew me away from it. So, I mean, when Coach Beamer called me and kind of had expressed interest and wanted me to potentially come back on staff, I was like, ooh, man, like, I don't know. Just finishing up retiring. I've always kind of told myself I didn't want to get into it, but this is a unique opportunity. Let me pray on it and talk with Kirsten. And, over about a month or two of kind of sorting through some of that stuff, my wife's way smarter than me. And she's like, the thing, Patrick, is if you don't do it now, 5 or 10 years from now, I don't know what you'll be doing. I know you'll be successful at it, but you might hate it. And you're always going to wonder, what if I would have done coaching? What if? And I'm like, yeah. So I was like, babe, you telling me I should try this? And she's like, I don't see any harm in it, because in 5 or 10 years, like, nobody's going to really remember you. Like, your opportunity, it's going to be a lot harder for you to crack into then, instead of all your name's hot and you're just coming out of ball. So yeah, I mean, we moved back here and we explored it, and I was kind of an on-field coach 2 years ago, transitioned into an off-field role last year that was able to kind of give me more work-life family balance, which I enjoyed. So no, it's been cool. And the thing that I enjoy most about it is mentoring the guys and kind of giving back.
Yeah.
And we
couldn't have a better guy than I think you. So,
I mean, it's been so cool. My thing is I want every single one of these guys to experience South Carolina the way that I experienced South Carolina and Columbia and the athletic department and everything. I mean, I had so much fun. I worked hard. I partied hard. We had a good old time. We had success on the field. We didn't have success on the field at times too, but that was all a part of my experience. And I want our guys, and I want every student athlete, every student here on campus to experience it, man, because it is a magical thing. I mean, when Kirsten and I got married, 6 of my 8 groomsmen were guys I met in college. I want to say 5 of Kirsten's bridesmaids were friends she met in Columbia, South Carolina here in college. And like, that's what it's about. It's about the relationships. It's about the people. And it's about the experiences that you share together. So that's what I love most. And that's what I enjoy pouring into the guys the most. I mean, football, it's just a game, and it's a very important game, and it kind of makes the University of South Carolina go around, especially the athletic department. But, they're student athletes, so they got to come here and they got to get a degree, and that degree is not hard. I mean, you and I, like, college is not easy, and balancing it with sports and trying to be social and enjoying yourself, like, it's difficult, but it teaches you a lot of life lessons, stuff that's led us into success outside of the sporting world now. So that's what I enjoy most, is kind of is giving back to these guys and just loving on them.
Yeah. What do you could say, what do you look up to Coach Beamer about, and like the way he puts together a program and just like a team?
Yeah, I think he's just consistent. He's the same guy yesterday, today, as he'll be tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, you just know what you're going to get every day from him, and I think that's, from a player standpoint. Like, I try to view everything from a player standpoint still, which I got to kind of work through. But like, that's all I ever wanted from a coach, was just like you to be consistent. If you're consistent, it will help me to be consistent too. So he's extremely consistent, and I think like, you feel the family environment, the family atmosphere. Like, it's every single recruit that leaves here, they're like, I feel like I just hung out with my uncles. I feel like I just hung out with my cousins. It's a very family oriented, and that comes directly from Coach Beamer and what he's building there. I mean, Emily's around all the time. His kids are around all the time, and they're open and they're great people. and like that, it just makes it so much easier to want to go and work your tail off for a guy like that who loves his wife, loves his kids, understands the balance, will kind of gives the coaching staff balance too. He's, one of his things is he says, I never want you guys to miss a recital or a sporting event. Like, you guys aren't allowed to do it. And if I hear you do, I'm going to be pissed. Which I think he picked up from Coach Spurrier, because I heard Coach Spurrier was a similar way too. So I just think it's easy to want to work hard and want to be successful for him, because you want, like, what he's done in 2 short years here, taking this place from 2-8 to 8-4 last year in the regular season. Like, we're on to something here, and it's going to be really exciting to see what the next few years look like.
Yeah, and especially on the recruiting trail. How's it feel for you and your wife to be back in Columbia?
It's been good. It's been an adjustment. It's different than Atlanta. It's a heck of a lot different from Buffalo. But it's been good. We've kind of fit in pretty quick. The way it works now is you become friends with who your kids become friends with, which has been really cool, because our kids have picked some really cool friends, and their parents are pretty cool too.
Nice.
It's been really cool to see that and kind of build a small community here. We lived in Atlanta for 8 years, but I would say in our 2 short years here in Columbia, there's more people that if some emergency were to happen in the DiMarco household, I could call more people in Columbia in the 2 years that would come and sleep at my house and take care of my kids than we would have in Atlanta in the 8 years we were there. But that just
Very
goes
cool.
into the tight-knit community that Columbia is.
Yeah, man. So y'all just had your 4th baby. Is there plans maybe for a 5th, or do y'all think y'all are done?
No, heck no. I can't do a basketball team. I can't do a basketball team.
I'll check back in a year, dude. Yeah.
No, we're already outnumbered. If it happens, God's working like crazy miracles. We put defense mechanisms up for this.
Got it. And you have 2 and 2, man. So it's kind of perfect.
Yep, got the girl sandwich. So oldest and youngest boy. You got Weston, Sutton, Collins. We call her Coco, and then Wade. Wade just turned 1 yesterday, actually. So it's cool. We got an army. I wanted 2. Kirsten wanted 3. God gave us 4. And every day's.
What's your oldest girl's name?
Sutton.
Sutton. I feel for when Sutton brings that first boy over, man.
Well, between me and Weston, that boy better be tough.
2 brothers and you.
Yep. Especially like Weston's starting to kind of take on, like, he's becoming like a tough boy. Like, he was always like, he was around mom a lot while I was playing. But like now he's starting to like I'll walk in the room and he'll like chest bump me, like, what's up? And I'm like, dude, you don't know who you're messing with. Like, I might snap into football mode on you.
Does he know, like, has he been able to like understand what you did for a living for 10 years?
He does. Like, I think he gets it. But he's also so challenging to a point where he's like, Dad, Josh Allen was so much better than you. And I'm like, you're right, but let's not say that to me. That's not really nice to say. So, man, he gets it just because he watches football and like he's into all sports just like I am. I don't think I'll show him pictures of being on the field in Buffalo and like pictures on the field in Atlanta. And I think he might remember a little bit of it, but he's old enough now. Like, we went to a Bills game last year. We went to a Falcons game last year.
Nice.
And that's where it's really cool. Like, to take him on the field, me being able to take him on the field and experience it. It just brings so much. It makes me so happy.
Sure. With last question, it might cause some controversy with some people there in Columbia.
All right.
One guy, Connor versus you in a golf matchup. Who's winning?
Oh, you can call it, or we can get him on the phone right now. He'll tell you I beat him by probably 5 or 6 strokes.
What course do you frequent, or what's your main?
So Connor and I actually joined the same club here. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt of it. It's Wood Creek Club right there out in Lugolf, Elgin.
Oh, cool.
Connor has been a member there for 3 years, and we joined last year. So Connor kind of started taking me out there, and I'm like, oh, this course is sweet. And he's like, well, hey, I want to hang out with you. Why don't you join out here and we'll play golf together? So we try to play probably once a month. And Connor's gotten a lot better. I will say that. Connor didn't get into golf until probably within the last 5 years. He actually just got a brand new set of golf clubs. He sent me a picture of them. And he's like, I'm coming for you, Pat.
What'd he get?
He got the new pings. I think the ping 430s. So I'm sure with as good of an athlete as he is and as fast as he's picked it up,
He'll figure it out.
I need to practice more in order to continue to beat him. He'll pick it up here soon, and he'll be giving me a run for my money.
Dude, golf though is one of those funny sports. Like you can take, the fastest, most like athletic, can jump the highest on like the basketball or football field. You got to put a golf club in their hand. They are the ugliest swing you've ever seen.
Well, and baseball too. Like other than throwing and catching, like we had a celebrity softball game. Micah Hyde has an annual event up in Buffalo, and we did offense versus defense, and like some of the greatest athletes in the world, like striking out in slow pitch softball, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, it's the thing's on a tee, you can't hit it. Like, and if you didn't grow up doing it, man, it's a particular skill set. And golf's very similar, but I mean, it has been so cool. COVID has been so good to the game of golf. Like, different age group, different ethnicities. Like it's becoming like golf is at the forefront now, and everyone's doing it. Everyone's realizing it's one of the few sports you can play until your 80s.
Yep. That's what I always tell my friends who are like starting to pick it up or thinking about it. I'm like, dude, pick it up. Like we play basketball and soccer together, and we don't play that anymore. So
I got about 20 years to do those sports, and then after that, you're doing the country club sports, playing tennis and golf.
That's right.
Pickleball. Connor's into pickleball now.
It's a good sport.
He'll beat me in pickleball. I can promise you that.
Nice. I love pickleball. I've played a few times. My wife has been wanting to do a date out on the pickleball court. So, Pat, man, thank you for joining me. It's been a lot of fun. I'm pumped you're back at South Carolina. Like I said, when I heard you were there, I was like, that's the mindset we need. And especially with Coach Beamer, everything going in the right direction. Really enjoyed following you through your career, especially, starting out at the Gamecocks. Thank you for joining me. It's been a hell of a conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Sam. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, man.